I've got to think it's the most meaningful and emotional 7-yard run we will ever witness in college football. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We review the Virginia spring game, and we got Jackie Franchuli on the line from Wahoo's 247 Sports, and we invite you on over there to check out Jackie's work. She's been joining us for a number of years, and Jackie, we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark.
Absolutely. And I am referring to Mike Holland's run to start out the spring game as the Virginia football team, of course, saw the public and saw the football field in public for the first time since the tragedy about 5 months ago, and honoring Lavelle Davis Jr., of course, and Deshaun Perry and Devin Chandler. Mike Holland survived a gunshot wound, and he got the first carry of the game, Jackie, and that had to be quite the moment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he got a standing ovation from the fans that were there in attendance. I mean, and Mike Collins's journey to playing football again is quite remarkable. I mean, he spoke to us pretty candidly about his journey back, and he said that the doctors told him back in November that in 6 months he might still need help putting on his socks. And look at him now carrying a football and playing and getting tackled. And even the coaches were saying that they were easy on him, working their way back to contact. So his football journey has been quite remarkable, but just the mental side of it too. I mean, he was pretty honest and said, the hardest thing in my journey wasn't playing football, because to him, he always was going to go play football again. To him was how he was going to walk to practice without calling Deshaun Perry before practice, because that's someone that he would be really close with. I mean, he was on that bus to go to the field trip because Deshaun Perry invited him. So those guys were really, really close. And actually, before the game even started, Jean Perry's family was there, and they were at the end zone that was painted in memory of the three young men with their numbers, their names, and UVA Strong written on it. And Mike Collins was there kneeling with them, and Will Bettridge, the kicker who was from Gulliver Prep, the same high school as Deshaun Perry. They were there with the Deshaun Perry family, just remembering Deshaun. A lot of players the first thing they did was walk up to that end zone and touch it, and just stood there and said some quiet moments, said prayers, or just said a quiet word for those three young men. So it was a lot of emotions out there.
Jackie, you've covered a lot of sports and a lot of college football in your day. This has to be a much different journey than anything that you've encountered in regards to covering this football team that hasn't seen the field since obviously canceling its final 2 games of last season. So it was early to mid-November the last time they were on the field, and this obviously the first time since the tragedy. And just Tony Elliott and his staff having to deal with a situation in which they want to do their best for this entire team in regards to just giving them the time and the space that they need and the psychological help and support.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tony Elliott said it best, pretty close to when the events happened in November, was that there's no playbook for this. There's nothing you can turn to see what's next. You have to go day by day. And what they said was they're never moving on, they're moving forward. And they always want to make sure there's the flame lit for these young men. They're trying to actively do stuff to memorialize these guys, to have pay tributes to them, never make sure they're never forgotten. The jerseys will have decals on them with their jerseys. If you're wearing a number 1, which is Lavelle Davis's number, there's a special decal on that. Number 15, Devin Chandler, number 41, Deshaun Perry. And for them, this team, today, when you watch them play, you saw some joy on their faces. And for them, it was going back to the game that they loved to play, but they felt when you go through such a tragic event like this and seeing your brothers who you expect to see every day, wake up in the morning and see them, they now see that the game of football, just your friends, your family, you're not guaranteed the next day. So you're seeing these guys embrace this. I'm going to take advantage of the day that I have. I'm going to take the advantage of this game that I love to play, that I'm playing right now. And they're showing joy. And you saw a team that was having fun out there. And that's honestly something that was missing last year during the season. And now you're seeing this, and you can see this group. And something that Tony Elliott even touched on in the post-game presser is you get a new perspective on life. You want to show that you have this spirit, that you're bouncing back, that you want to make sure that you're living life in memory of Lavelle Davis, Devin Chandler, and Deshaun Perry. And it's definitely been, like you said, I've been covering college football a long time, and it's just been a different journey for you to cover, but also a different journey to see from these players, that you see them when they walk out on the field the first day of spring practice. That was a milestone for this team, going back to the McHugh Center and going back in those practice locker rooms without those three young men, not being able to call them, not being able to talk to them about what they did in practice. Scott Stadium for the first time in front of fans. That's another milestone for this team. You're going to see more milestones where this is going to be during fall camp, and then during the first game this season when they're in Nashville playing Tennessee, the first home game against James Madison in Scott Stadium. There's going to be so many milestones for this team this year yet, and you're just seeing them lean on each other a lot more. So it's something that as a sports reporter you never think you're going to cover. I don't think a lot of us even think that this is something even imaginable, that it's ever going to be part of your daily lives. And these guys obviously didn't think that they were going to say goodbye for the last time. I mean, they played Pittsburgh on Saturday. Sunday, these guys were going on a field trip. They thought they were going to see them back at Monday during film sessions and practice. So definitely, it's these guys. It's definitely been a tough few months for these young men, and seeing them enjoy themselves was nice as someone who's seen these guys the last few years, and seeing how much those three used to mean to this team.
We've got Jackie Franchuli on the line from Wahoo's 247. You can catch her work right there on 247 Sports, Wahoo's 247, talking Virginia football with the Cavaliers and their spring game. All right, we'll take it to the field, Jackie, because this team has had one of the more stable quarterback situations over the last 3 years, with Brennan Armstrong turning in one of the most prolific, probably the most prolific passing season in program history a couple years ago. And he moves on to North Carolina State. So we've got Tony Muskett from Monmouth in the mix, along with Anthony Colandrea. Is that a true quarterback battle? Where do we stand there?
So the quarterback battle is a very interesting one over Virginia, because technically Jay Wolfick is also factoring in, but he's a dual sport athlete, and he's currently playing baseball right now. So he's a very talented pitcher on the baseball team for UVA. So he couldn't play in the spring game. So during the spring practice sessions, the coaches and the baseball coaches have been trying to figure out a way and balance Jay Wolfick's schedule. So sometimes he doesn't throw at football, but he's doing the football in the morning. In the afternoon, he's with baseball. This weekend, he's got a series against Pitt, so he didn't play in the spring game. So the quarterback battle for QB1 is actually between Tony Muskett and Jay Wolfick, who got most of the reps with ones. Whenever Jay Wolfick was available to throw, he took reps with Tony Muskett with the ones and twos. So Anthony Colandrea, he is now stepping up and getting a lot of the reps also, especially with the twos, because Jay Wolfick wasn't there. So you're seeing, so obviously Tony Muskett, you see how he's got a cannon of an arm. You see that he seems to really understand the playbook. I know, talking to people, they say that he really grasped the playbook rather quickly. You can see that he can read the defense as well. You can see that he fits the system that Des Kitchings and Tony Elliott was trying to embrace last year. He kind of fits the quarterback mold that they want. Then you have Anthony Colandrea, that when you saw him today in the spring game, you just saw this kid that it felt like, is he really a freshman? Is he really a guy who just enrolled in January? He showed a lot of moxie. He showed a lot of ability to extend drives and just make sure that he can get the ball out. I know Tony Elliott joked a little bit, because he said you got to play like, he was telling him, like, okay, I need you to not play like you're wearing an orange jersey, because sometimes he would kind of extend plays and knew he wasn't going to get hit, because they weren't live tackling quarterbacks. But he's one that's going to be very interesting as how they're going to move forward, because obviously Jay Wolfick is a dual sport athlete. Now, the coaches have been saying that they're not going to choose a starting quarterback until the fall. They're giving Jay Wolfick a little bit more time to compete for the position. But now you're thinking, okay, where does Anthony Colandrea factor in? Obviously, he's still learning the college game. He's still learning the offense. He's still very young, but he definitely has a lot of talent. So your expectation is that Tony Muskett and Jay Wolfick will still fight for that QB1, but Anthony Colandrea is certainly making some noise.
And Jackie, I was also curious about the running back room. It seems to be a crowded room. A couple names that we're familiar with would be Kobe Pace coming in from Clemson. And then also by lineage, we would be familiar with one Jack Greasy. So I see that name and I'm like, well, there we go. That's a grandson of Bob Greasy. And so where do we stack up in the running back room?
So that's like you said, it's a very crowded room. So the guys that are returning from last year is Paris Jones, who is the QB, I mean, running back one. Then you have Mike Collins, obviously. Then you have Xavier Brown. Those are the three main backs from last season. Kobe Pace is a newcomer, but you also have Cody Brown, who was a University of Miami transfer last year. Last year, he was dealing with injuries. He was trying to work back conditioning. And then you have Ahmad Foston, who didn't play in the spring game because he was recovering from an injury from last year. So he's also factoring in there in running back room. So a lot of talent there. So those are the kind of the main running backs when you consider in that room. I think Greasy could be factoring in a lot in special teams. I mean, they could very well have a package here and there, but I think right now you would think that Paris Jones and Mike Collins would be kind of the two that you would eye for a lot of those first touches in the running back room, possibly then Kobe Pace. I think Xavier Brown is one that's very interesting. I think Des Kitching said it correctly. Last year, he was kind of forced to play as a freshman. I think he needed to add more weight. And I think they just had to go to him. So this year he had more weight, and actually he had a chance to score towards the end of the game, and he actually ran through a tackle. And last year, he wouldn't have been able to run through a tackle. He would have been brought down. So you already see the extra muscle mass that he was able to build. I think he's a guy that they can really use in the slot because obviously they missed out Billy Kemp, who left, and I know they brought in Malik Washington, the Northwestern wide receiver, to help him in that position. But I think Xavier Brown also has that capability of hurting other teams in the slot. So you can possibly see how they might use him in certain packages. But yeah, like this running back room is going to be an interesting battle to see in the fall. But I would assume just from like watching the spring game and seeing how the reps were distributed, it was mostly Paris Jones, Mike Collins, and Kobe Pace were the three that got most of the reps at running back. So I assume that's what we're kind of seeing as the fall approaches.
Jackie Franchuli, Wahoo's 247 Sports. Jackie, I know with all the pregame festivities and the travel to and from the stadium, and of course the game and the postgame and everything else, it's been a mighty long day for you. So appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. No, it was definitely a lot of fun. You can see that the players just felt great just to go on the grass again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jackie.